Hello, this is the last presentation on our QMS-4-SME product. The topic is Change Management and Action Plan. I assume you've been watching the previous presentations on non-compliance and CAPAs, customer complaints, and training management and EDM. The picture and logo you see here are customizable. We handle multiple languages. To connect, I need a login and a password as well as a modern browser and an internet connection. Once connected, I choose my application, here QMS-4-SME. On the top of the landing page, you see an example of our analytics feature, and on the lower side the pending list. As explained in our other QMS-4-SME videos, the pending list is meant to quickly process information without entering the huge list of records in the application. You see here two new change management records related to today's topic. One is a change control initiation, and the other one is a change control action. The initiation is for the CAP, also called Change Advisory Board, and the action is assigned to me. On the right, you see the awaiting workflows on which I expect some kind of follow-up. In that case, two actions related to a change, each assigned to a different user. Let's open the change initiation record straight from the pending list. The form opens, and since the declaration section was already filled up and the workflow was started, this part is locked. Let me minimize it and focus on the analysis section. Analysis is the part on which the CAP persons are required to act. I see that I have a list of risks, a list of concerned processes, a risk level and a control mean. We'll get back to this in a moment. Let me close this record for now. On the upper right corner, you find your profile, application settings, application switcher, and the disconnection feature. The logo, of course, is customizable with your organizations. The application menu located on the upper left corner will take you to the application structure. You see the four usual QMS-4-SME sections. Since we're addressing the change management today, we'll focus on the change section under Quality Management System. Under the action family, we'll dig into the production and non-production actions. These actions will be linked to changes records, as you may guess. Let me browse to the change family. You see here the change records grid containing all the changes created in the system. This referential workflow column shows you the type of workflow on each record. Here, we define two types of workflows: change initiation and change action. Under the workflow status, I see the different statuses like finished in green, in progress in yellow, and cancelled in red. The approval status shows you the current step of the workflow. Based on the rights you allow to your users, someone can create, edit, delete, or duplicate a record. But once a workflow is started, a record can't be deleted, ever. You may publish a record and its content to PDF, create and start a workflow. You can export the grid to Microsoft Excel in a single click with the exact same layout and matching colors. We can build a traceability matrix that will export exactly what you require from your dataset in Microsoft Excel. Here is a simple example. You may notify a registered user in the system to review or approve a record with the mailing feature. Select the record, click on the button, choose the user, type your message, and hit send. The user will receive a notification with the details about the record to review. Just as you would do on Excel, you can filter anything on your data straight from the headers, and then break the filter with the dedicated button. You can reorganize your columns as you wish, and your layout is saved at session level, meaning you will always find your own layout once you reconnect to GXP Manager. You may regroup by field value using the drag and drop feature. Ungroup by clicking this button. You can proceed with advanced searches and break them with these buttons. You can execute your calculated fields. If you need to search throughout your whole dataset, you can use this field. You may choose to hide or display certain columns to organize your layout. Again, this is saved at session level. Now that you know how GXP Manager works, let's create a change. I click the Create button and the form opens. I see that I have a set of fields related to the declaration of the change. To initiate a change, I choose its type. This list is customizable. I type a title, a hotfix installation for the example. Then, I enter a description of the change, the expected benefit, the target date, and finally, the priority. The initiator is now able to push the change in the system by starting the workflow. Choose the initiation workflow referential. We design the change process in a way that the groups are automatically assigned when a change is pushed in the system. Of course, this is entirely customizable with our platform. You see the change just switched to the initiated state. It is now time for the change advisory board persons to analyze it. Of course, they were notified, and they can now connect to GXP Manager to open the change record. The CAB members can alter the data entered by the initiator. These declaration fields are locked, but we can customize this if needed. Let me focus the layout on the analysis bar. I have 4 fields on which I need to pay attention. A list of risks, the concerned process, the risk level, and the control mean. From this customizable risk list, I will choose System Security. I select the concerned process. Here, ID Infrastructure. I choose a medium risk level. And finally, I define my control mean. It is now time to create my actions related to this change. For that, I browse to the Change Control Action section on the right, and I create a record. If you leave a blank code, or unique ID if you will, the system will generate it based on the coding rule you defined. This is a non-production action. I define an owner, and type in the action details. To finally create the first action, I create a second action, this time to restart the server. I type the action details, and I assign someone else to the task to finally create the second action. Then, I create 2 additional actions, this time on the production environment. Using the same method, I choose production action for both, assign the proper engineers, type in the details, risk information, and create the records. Next, I confirm and sign the change as a CAB member. I see the change status switch to analyzed. Now the change needs to be either approved or rejected. So, since this is an ID change, as an ID manager I can connect to GXP Manager, open the record, check what is within the change record, check the action plan and the action details, to finally approve the change by signing the workflow off. At this point, the whole change is approved, and now is the time to tackle the action executions. The IT manager starts the action workflow on the change, selects both engineers responsible for the actions, and chooses the approver for the action executions. Then, validates to start the workflow. This implies that the change is now on the action management phase, as you can see under the referential workflow column. Both engineers were notified. They can now connect and consult the change record. Each of them will only be able to see their own actions. I open my first action, declare the execution date, and comment and update the action. And I do so on the second one. I can now approve and sign the fact that my actions were done. Meanwhile, the other engineer did the same on his actions. The change and its action plan now has a treated status. The QA or the ID manager was notified, and the executed action plan can be reviewed by opening the record. Checking the change actions content, like the execution date and comments, and if satisfactory enough, the person confirms and signs the action plan execution. The change is now entirely realized and signed off, as you can see with the green status. As a final step, you may publish the change record and all its content to PDF to share with an auditor. The generated PDF file contains all required data such as the signatures details, change data and action plan, you name it. Thanks for watching our QMS-4-SME Change Management and Action Plan presentation. If you need a more personalized demo or pricing information, please contact us through our website.